I'm gonna spray this on my head, and now it's gonna be laid down or whatever for like the foreseeable.
Yeah.
So she must have known what she was putting in her hair was to an extent like a bit mad.
Yeah.
That's my only thing. I don't know why people are like donating to her and shit.
Are they donating to her?
Yeah, just like I don't know. Like I feel like my feet are
I didn't know she was getting donations in it, but I mean, it took you a whole month to go to the doctors to ask them about it. Like on day 4, I'd have been like, right, this needs to come out of my head, isn't it? But
you know, man, if my head, yeah, exactly.
I wouldn't even been on TikTok telling people that I did that stupidness in it. So.
How is hardware glue killing my people, fam? I don't get it.
This is where the lockdown has taken us.
But I don't think she's even learned from it, you know. I feel like she'll do something stupid again. Like if you've reached 40 and that's the first thing you've done stupid, I highly doubt it. Do you know what I mean? Like she's probably does like more.
She's been doing this madness for
That's the thing. If you're 40 and on TikTok as well, most of us are flying out to holidays with our kids and that, and she's putting Gorilla Glue in her head. Okay.
You know, for like the first few days, no one could tell her shit. She thought her hair was finished. She was like, "This looks good. It's slick. This is the best thing happened." It definitely got to like day 4 where she went to wash out. I was like, "Nah, it's not." She probably sat in that shower with stress.
The pain from that.
Have you not seen her crying? Like she's rubbing it on that. Like I don't even know what. I think they said acetone or something. I don't even really know what that is, isn't it? But she was rubbing it on her head. She was crying, isn't it?
It's literally a glue, and you use the glue to put metals together and shit. Like it's not.
No, yeah. But she so the doctor apparently, you know, she went to hospital like yesterday. Whenever she went, they gave her like some wipes to just basically send her home. It's like, oh, deal with it yourself in it. Which is what I'll do, to be fair, because.
Exactly. What do you tell a 40-year-old that?
I'd be like, I feel like a lot of people come into with a lot of stupid things into A&E, but that's gonna be the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Do you know what I mean? Like, and people willingly
done that shit,
because people were like, oh, why haven't Gorilla Glue come forward and said stuff? And I'll be like, to be fair, I understand why they wouldn't. America's sue culture, like I might tell her to do something, she does it, and her head's finished. Like her head just drops off her head. Like I'm not getting sued because of that.
Yeah, then why? What was that going to do with them? What is that going to do with them?
You see what I mean? Like that's not what the product's used for. So because they were like, oh, they must know how to like melt it down. And I was thinking, obviously, on like metals, you can't use the same thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't tip like bleach on your head and be like, oh yeah, that's calm now, it's melted. And like, I was just wouldn't say anything, innit?
That's real. You can't have an antidote for stupidity, fam.
You mean? Sometimes you just gotta hold it out with it, like.
Yeah.
Nah, it's crazy, man. But the On Record podcast, another episode this week. We are joined by Jonny, better known as Nancy. But yeah, today we're going to be talking about, in light of recent kind of comments and news from the football world, I guess, the sport world, with a lot of players receiving racial abuse. I don't know why this is suddenly started increasing again, but over social media. Just a whole lot of other random shit that we normally just talk on. But I think, I don't know, did it start with Rashford, this whole like commenting? Or was it Reece James, or was it Xavier?
I think it was Rashford still.
Yeah, he's the only one I actually heard that. Like racially abused. Yeah, I don't really follow.
I think it started with Xavier. I think it started with him.
Oh, what, the actual abuse?
Like not in terms of like the first person it's been going on for time, but in terms of like this recent increase, I think it started with Xavier.
Oh yeah, that's true actually. I think so, yeah.
No, wait.
Well, what was Xavier and Martial?
It was after that game. What was the United game that they?
Yeah, when he flopped. Yeah.
What game was that?
It was literally about 6 weeks ago. Obviously, he had a bad game. It was his first game for a few matches.
It wasn't even that long ago. Sheffield. I swear.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Sheffield United. Yeah.
Obviously won, and then the comment section were going crazy. And then I think Reece James a couple of days later as well got that as well. And then, in terms of that, I think my first question to you is, obviously me and Jonny, we were talking about this the other day, but someone was like, oh, should black athletes just leave social media to stop this happening? Like, she's basically saying this. Like, what would you guys say in terms of, I guess, my first question, because how do we solve racial abuse, or in general, I guess trolling or abuse online? How do you solve that in your opinion?
Personally, I don't think you can solve it, innit? Like, you've got to change people's mindsets, which you can never really do over social media. So yeah, I don't think you can ever solve that. You've actually got to know the person to change them in person, if that makes sense. I feel like I can say whatever I want on social media because I know it's never going to really affect me if I make a burner account. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know. I don't think you really can solve it. I don't think the solution is coming off social media though, because that's in some. No, carry on.
I was gonna say quickly, just to add to that quickly in terms of what you think solves it. A lot of people say that you need to have some proof of ID as well. To like get allowed, you know what I mean? So you have to like match some ID to your account so we know who it's coming from, or at least the person that has like the Twitter, I don't know, who runs Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, they know who's behind these accounts, even if it's not like your name or whatever.
Yeah.
Somebody somewhere knows who it is. You get.
Yeah. But then I feel like I don't know, because aren't you allowed social media at like 13? I don't really. It's like Facebook and that lot. It's all like 13 minimum age, and it like, what are they going to attach to their accounts? They're not going to have like a bank card. They're not really going to have ID. Do you know what I mean? Like,
maybe they shouldn't be allowed. Maybe they shouldn't be allowed.
I don't know, because I can't really lie. I've been on social media for a while, and it like, I'm not gonna lie, I had Bieber in primary school, so I'm not gonna lie. But no, I don't know. I don't think that's the solution because I don't think that really works. Anyone could just take anyone's ID. Do you know what I mean? Like in real life, I could take your ID and just say I'm Henry. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know. I don't think you really can solve it. In it, like it's literally changing people's mindsets. And if you can't do that, then it's never gonna stop the trolling in it. Like I feel like more people are racist online because they like it's that confidence of being behind the screen. In it, like you can say what you want because you're never gonna really meet that person in real life. Do you know what I mean? Like you can be racist to Marcus Rashford because you know you're not gonna meet him in real life. But if you knew you was going to meet him in real life, it would be a bit of a different situation. So, I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. What you saying, Jonny?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Luke because obviously, in general, if you really want to solve the root cause of the problem, you have to look at people's mindsets. So if people think it's okay to discriminate against people, cast people out on social media, like put their beef on social media, obviously they're thinking, oh, he's a football player. He's going to be able to take it because he plays week in, week out. He earns 100K a week and stuff like that. So therein lies the problem because especially in these times, in terms of free thinking and free opinion, you're not really going to be able to limit the way people act on social media.
Yeah.
So if we kind of narrow it down to how do you combat racism on social media, it should be the same with like, explicit content on Twitter.
Yeah.
And that regularly gets flagged up. If you think of Twitter last year, people were putting the wildest videos on.
True.
And no one would say anything, never get flagged. I think that should be the same for racism. So there should be certain trigger words or certain posts, certain content where Instagram or all social media just think, okay, we're going to make sure that if that comes up in our feed, we'll just lock off the account.
Yeah, that's true. Actually. That's true.
Yeah, to be fair, that probably would work. The only downside I can see, I feel like that's a pretty good idea to be fair. Like, you can't say the nigger, but then say, for instance, I put like nigger under my thing. I think if that's going to work, you need someone to review it, if that makes sense. Like, oh, cool. Like, he's not using it in a like derogatory way.
To be honest, with the M word and stuff like that, I know obviously we probably say it to each other, but really, it doesn't. I'd rather that just gets flagged on socials in general, so that people just stop. It stops getting out there rather than. And us not being able to say it, do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd rather that just no one says it on socials, isn't it?
Yeah, true.
Because then that would stop. Because really and truly, we don't need that word.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean?
So I think more time people just use it to like, if I was talking to you, I'd say it. I wouldn't like tweet it or put it under a caption or like whatever else you can do with it in it. But to be fair, I think if that, like, I agree with Jonny then, you probably should have like trigger words that just like flag up. Because I think, to be fair, even on like when we post videos on YouTube, it says like, oh, do you want us to hold comments for you to like review it? And then they have like ones where it just automatically holds comments that they think like might be like racially like biased or like just like cause any problems. I think they do that automatically. So to be fair, I think I agree with you. Like it probably shouldn't even be going through to the DMs. They should just be like, right, cool, you've used that word, just block it straight off the bat.
To be honest, Twitter do kind of do that as well as Instagram. Obviously, but more Instagram with videos in it. But on Twitter, sometimes you'll see if you go in comments, it will say this has. They don't really do anything to actually stop it, but they say like
sensitive content warning.
Yeah. But then you can literally press show more in it. So But
okay, so with that, that's obviously like on the surface. I'm asking, look, how do we stop people on social media? But what's like in terms of like the actual problem? what you lot saying about that in terms of like actually just the continuation, even after we've seen all these protests this year.
Yeah.
The continuation, especially obviously in football, all the kneeling and stuff out every week we're seeing.
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter on the you know where normally you have fans in it now.
Yeah, like on the seats and stuff. Yeah.
Obviously that's what you said in terms of like the deeper root causes and what do you think in this country, I guess, what do you think people can do to improve that?
Listen, I'm going to be controversial in it. Obviously, it's nice to see clubs and obviously the FA and other football associations making players take the knee.
Yeah.
But I feel like taking the knee is quite controversial, and it's quite commercial as well, because obviously you remember what happened to, what's his name, that NFL football player, Kaepernick?
Yeah, Kaepernick, yeah.
Obviously, the reason why he took the knee, yes, there was an element of standing up for the color of his skin, but also he's standing up against his beliefs against, obviously, the US as a nation. Yeah. So obviously that makes taking the knee quite political, which is why we've seen over the recent months, especially when the Prem started.
Yeah.
I'm not going to name certain demographics because that's not what I'm here for, but obviously some people are going, why are you taking a knee? Marxism, rare tear. And obviously, I think at the end of the day, we have to play it smart, because obviously not everyone is always going to like the moves that we make, but if we kind of figure out a strategy to say, this is how we're going to teach and educate people instead of just taking a knee every week, because everyone forgets the message. You know what I mean? Like, if you have Sky Sports or BT Sport, maybe at the start of every show or midway through every show, they can just give us some statistics of racism. You know what I mean? Just to remind people that it's still very much alive, because the way information is outlaid to us nowadays, especially in our generation, there's so much of it that most of us don't really care about it. We just look at it, remember it for 5 minutes, and then we go on about our day. So it needs to be planned and impactful in a way where if we're relaying it regularly, then people will at least be aware, and that's the starting point.
Yeah, I think I'm not letting be difficult. I think I'm going to disagree with you on that, just only because, like, I don't know if you watch Formula One or anything. At the beginning of like every Formula One, they put like, "Oh, we're here to stamp out racism."
They got the T-shirts, of course,
yeah, and all that. But even like they had an advert before that on like the Sky Sports. I don't know if you used it on Sky Sports, but it was like I don't even know what it was. Just like a random advert with all of them saying like, "Oh, we're here to stamp out racism." But then some of them didn't want to take the knee because they were like, "Oh, it's political," which is fair enough. Like I didn't really care who took the knee and who didn't really take the knee. I feel like it's entirely up to you. But also you see people on like, if you're on Twitter, you'll see people tweeting like, "Oh, they're still doing this." I don't think it will really make a difference. Because I feel like the people that are still racist are the ones that don't want to change. If that makes sense. I feel like the ones that do want to learn about it don't need to be reminded every single, like, before every single match. The ones that they're trying to like target are the ones that just don't care anyways. Like, they're the ones that will go out on the weekend and be racist because they just don't care. Do you know what I mean? So I don't think, like, I hate to say it, but I don't think they're ever gonna be able to stamp out racism, just because there's always going to be a certain demographic that will just not want to listen to it. Like,
I agree.
That's from like all races, to be fair. So if you don't want to change the way you're already thinking, you're just not going to do it. It doesn't matter like what people tell you. Do you know what I mean? Like, everyone knows racism shouldn't exist, but there's also those people that just seem to think that it's the right way. So I don't think they're going to really do anything to stamp it out, because I feel like if you're looking at certain, like, was it Millwall that was like booing them for like kneeling? Like, but look at the ages of the people. Do you think we're going to really change like a 40-year-old man's mindset when he's? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like that guy that the other week that we were like everyone was cancelling because he was what did he? I can't remember what he said. He didn't want to listen to like the black or Asian politicians. But then there was like, I think there was a black guy next to him, and he was like, "Oh yeah, it's the black guy either." But he was like a Sunday league manager. He wasn't really like anything in it. Like, he still had to work a full-time job in it. But but like, if you got people like him at the head of it, then obviously like he'll have that certain bias where, like, say for instance, there's a black kid that's like really good, or an Asian kid that's really good at football. They sign up for his team. He probably wouldn't put them on the pitch. He just would like block them. So I think if anything, you're gonna I don't think you'll stamp it out, but if you're gonna make any change, it would be probably starting with like the influential people, the ones that can actually make decisions. So like
I think I'd say from my opinion, to be honest, in terms of like how would you go about it on a deeper issue, I guess, as you said, you're never really going to stamp it out. But I think, as Jonny said, I guess, keep relaying the message, but in different ways, possibly, because obviously with the kneeling thing, the message has now been lost in that sense. But I think they need to be harsher, especially when fans come back into stadiums. Any of this racial abuse, they need to make sure these people are never allowed back in the stadium, or people that do endorse this kind of behaviour aren't allowed to be a part of the footballing community. I guess that's a start in terms of at least within football, everyone's on the same page. Anyone that's not, you can leave because like, do you know what I mean? But then in terms of society, I guess there's not really an answer for that. You can talk about it, like, do you know what I mean?
I suppose, like, obviously these people, normally, to be fair, like, the most racist fans are the ones that are, like, the diehard fans of that club. So, it probably would hurt them, like, I think they need to put more of an onus on the club as well, like, start finding the clubs, like, cool, like, why have you continued to let this fan in? Like, I don't mean fine them for, like, being racist, because obviously it's not their fault that their fans are racist, do you know what I mean? Like, but, like, if they caught the person before, like, the, like, match making racism, like, comments, then why are they back in? Do you know what I mean? Like, it shouldn't be like a 5-match ban, 10-match ban. It should just be like straight off. You never come back into the stadium.
Yeah, 100%. Like, or you're banned from like every single like football ground in this country, kind of.
Yeah.
Like, if
they need to step up. I mean, yeah.
I think now, you know what? I think they should be. I think the football club should be fined if any racism happens in their stadium. I think that would incentivize them to clamp down harder, because the more they're getting fined, they're getting like fined like 20K a week or something, because one person or like two people in their crowd. I feel they'll be more vigilant, and then they'll start kind of thinking, oh, let's not let this. Do you know what I mean? So I feel that could be a way, to be honest, of actually helping with it.
Ask you another question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Because obviously you and Luke have mentioned some quite good points. Like, do you think it's about changing the mindset? Because especially you, Luke, you said about, and you, Henry, as well, saying about, it's probably impossible to stamp out racism, period. In this life, if not for the rest of life. So should it then be about trying to make sure we put as much weight on anti-racism as possible, just to give not necessarily the racists, but people that are on the fence and people who don't really educate themselves on racism, but tend not to have racist views, if you get what I mean? Yeah, like, if I could give my response, I would think, I definitely agree with you two. You can't stop people being racist, and to an extent, you can't really stop racism, because everyone has their own views on someone based on their color of the skin, the color of their eyes, their hairline, stuff like that. Unfortunately, that's just the way the world is. But it's just like, I think the point I was making earlier about trying to relay the message every week is just to get into people's heads. People who tend to follow the trend, if you give them these informations, then they will tend to be siding with people who are anti-racist and people who are getting racially abused, which is obviously going to help our cause, especially for our demographic. And I kind of feel like, in a way, it's hard, because obviously you'd want to stamp out periods, but that's just not realistic, especially as society gets even more multicultural. Obviously, globalization improves and stuff like that. People aren't going to be bothered about certain demographics culture. I think, to be fair, I agree with you. I feel like everyone's guilty of that. There's certain things that like the other day I kind of looked up what was it, like the Palestine v Israel kind of situation, because like, to be fair, before that I see all the stuff and I was like, okay, I don't really understand it, I'm just not going to post anything about it. And I actually read into it, I was like, oh, cool, then I'll make a viewpoint. I think that's probably the same thing with racism. Like, I'm not even just saying like white people, but like white people, obviously, because they don't really feel racism on a day-to-day basis. Like, they might not be racist, but they just don't ever think about it because it's not affecting them. And I think when something doesn't affect you, you have no reason to think about it. So I think, like you said, it probably is through the education that they're not racist. They're sort of neutral, dead in the middle. They might not agree with racism, but they don't do anything to sort of stop it. But they're also not racist at the same time. So I think those people are probably the ones that they're the ones you have to change. Like, they're the ones that will make the biggest influence. Because I think, although I say that you can't, like, you're never gonna get rid of racism, which I think it's probably true to most extents. Like you said, it might happen like much further down the line, but definitely not in this lifetime. But
I think the ones I remember seeing a quote. I think it was like Charlamagne the God that said like oh, out of 10 people you're trying to impress, you'll have like your diehard fans that like agree with you. So like someone that's like 100% that's racism, like I know that's racist. So you might have like 4 of those. Then you have like 3 people sitting on the fence. They're the people that you have to try and convert. Because the ones that already said like they don't care about racism, you're never going to change their mindset. There's no point trying to impress them. So if you can get the people that are in the middle that could go either way, if you get them onto your side, that's probably the best solution. How you go about that, I don't really know. I think the best solution I've ever seen is like solving racism. Do you know this lady called Jane Elliott? Yeah. Like I think her experience is probably the only ones that I've seen that are, like the most realistic, because that obviously puts those people that aren't necessarily racist in a position where they're experiencing racism, and they normally, to be fair, I feel like tip the balance, but actually, right, I see that I have a bias. So I feel like that's probably the best solution, I think, of stamping out, is not being racist to people, but like in other ways making them feel the disadvantage that other people feel. Obviously not to the extent that, like, say for instance, a black person will feel it. You don't have to like ruin their whole life about it, but if you give them that little, like teach them. But yeah, I don't think, I think the ones that are like racist, you're not going to convert them. There's no point even wasting your time trying to convert them. But it's getting those people that are in the middle that just, like you said, don't really, they're not racist, but they don't really have a viewpoint on it.
No, that's true. And I think as well, one of the problems that we have in tackling racism is that too much is focused on the opinion instead of how the opinion is allowed to be conditioned in society, for example. Like more often than not, if you tackle the root cause in certain areas, like obviously us three, we don't need to say it, like we already know certain areas where we think, oh, if I go for a night out, for example, if I walk down the street, there's a chance of me being racially abused for no reason other than the fact that people have this opinion of me. But obviously, while we kind of tend to sway to the emotional side because naturally it hurts us on a personal level, it kind of clouds our judgment in terms of thinking, hang on a second, this person has grown up in this area has a history of A, B, C, D, they have this opinion. And so when we're looking at making sure that these certain opinions don't hold weight, it's important to know that when we're talking about people sitting on the fence, those are the people in those certain areas that we need to be swaying and educating as well, because they obviously, the way the world is moving, opinions are changing all the time, culture's changing all the time. So as you said about Charlamagne, those 3 out of 10 people may say, hang on a second, my dad was like this, and my dad has this opinion on, the Indian guy from the corner shop or the Caribbean guy in the Caribbean shop. But this doesn't really make sense because based on what we know now in the 21st century, that opinion is not only outdated, but it's also untrue. So just to engage people's brains, and then from there, we can maybe think about pushing forward actions and actually having our stance hold weight.
I think
the funniest thing though about like the racist fans, like Chelsea fans, like at least half the players on the pitch for them are black.
That's the thing. That's what...
like, you not think, like, do you know what I mean? Like, but it doesn't make any logical sense for these people. Like, when Raheem Sterling got racially abused, like at Stamford Bridge, it's like there was Kante on the pitch, there was all kinds of different players. That's their guy, isn't it? Kante, isn't it?
But to be fair, it's normally like your own fans that are the most racist. To be fair, because obviously, I don't know why, but like I can't remember who it was, but it was in like a European match in Italy. They started chucking bananas, but it wasn't like the opposition's fans. It was his own fans for like I can't remember who it was, but they started chucking bananas.
Was it Roberto Carlos?
I don't actually remember. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I just remember he was playing for an Italian team, and we've only got like 10 minutes on this, but I can't remember who it was, but it was his own. It's normally your own fans that are doing the most like racial abuse to you, but like it's just mad, isn't it? Like I also think that another problem with like how we deal with racism is normally that we only look at it from like a black perspective. If that makes sense. Like everything's always like, oh, how black people are being treated, but we don't really look at like the alternatives where like, oh, the Asian side, which obviously it's like I'm not complaining about like we're looking at it that way, but I also think that also doesn't help the whole stamp out racism, because then the ones that are racist or sometimes sitting on the middle will be like, oh, it's always the black people complaining instead of being like, actually, no, it does affect other races, but they always look at it from a black perspective. And they always seem to make like black people sort of be like the spokesperson. So even if it happened to an Asian person, they're gonna be like, they'll find a black person to be like, oh, come out, stick up for us, sort of thing. So I think the way, even just like on the natural basis we deal with racism, I think also needs to change. It's not, we can't expect people to change their mindsets when obviously you only look at it from a black perspective, and there's people like, well, it's always the blacks that are complaining, when instead like an Asian person come up and be like, actually no, yeah, but I've experienced the same thing. Like they need to have more like diversity when people are talking about their experience with racism, instead of just always looking at how black people dealt. Like obviously in football, like I would say obviously there's a lot more, I suppose, black players than are of like Asian descent. So obviously the racism is a bit more like prevalent in that our community, I suppose. But just in general, like how we deal with racism, I don't think really helps deal with racism, if that makes sense.
That's definitely true, you know, because if you actually think about it, especially past couple of years with the pandemic, you never hear Sky Sports trying to interview Asian players on how they may have been abused because of obviously coronavirus coming from Wuhan. So you don't even have to be Chinese. You could just look Chinese or look stereotypical Asian way, and people are going to be, you know, trying to mimic Mandarin, saying that don't touch me, you've probably got coronavirus, just stupid things like that. And that needs to be put out there more, because as you said, it's not just black people that experience racism, it's lots of demographics.
I think that's down to the media though, because to be fair, people's expectations, because even to be fair, at the beginning of coronavirus, people were like, I saw it was at the very beginning, and there was like someone, it was like an Asian person on Twitter, like, oh, we're the black people for us to stick up for us now, like we're getting assaulted, and then all the black people were jumping on them like, but you're never there, like sticking up for us. But I think again, even within the people that are facing racism, I kind of get it. Like if you're always sticking up for yourselves, and then no one else sticks up for you, it's a bit hard to always want to stick up for other races. But I think like sometimes you just gotta let that go and be like, actually, this will actually work for the greater good. If I can change this person's view, maybe on an Asian person, that'll make it a bit easier for them to change their view on black people. So yeah, I think it's down to the media and people themselves. But as I said, I don't think ever going to stamp out racism.
Just going back to like, I think Jonny was saying something about certain places in the country you're trying to go, and obviously you don't know if you're going to get racially abused. Have any of you not been had any mad experience of that, like a night out anywhere, either at uni, obviously we all went to the same uni, or just anywhere in general? Have any of you not had anything like that happen?
I can't say I have, to be fair, so I'm gonna say I'm out on that one. Like, but I told you I'm quite anomaly. I've never been pulled over by the police or anything, so like, what about you doing?
Yeah, Henry, I'm sure you know, innit? Definitely. Probably one you don't know actually. When I was 13, obviously I went to a school not too far away from you, innit? I have to disclose that. So anyway, I was 13. Obviously, you man remember there was a 99p store. Near to your school actually. So anyway, now I'm with about 6 of my friends. We've got one Asian person, me, and then 4 white people. So obviously we've gone into the shop. I won't say who, but obviously one of my white friends, he started nicking lots of chewit, like next to the camera in it. And obviously we're all standing around laughing at him. So obviously he's taking the nick, steals the chewit, obviously pays for the sweets that he actually wants to buy. We'll do our thing. Everyone has paid for their sweets apart from this particular person, So anyway, we're all standing outside the shop. And then one of the managers comes to me and says, "Oh, you've been stealing." And I'm thinking, what? I was fuming automatically because one of the cashiers would have seen me pay for my thing. And I wasn't I was near the camera, but if I had been stealing something, you wouldn't have really saw me. And there was no shop workers around at the time. So there was no literal evidence to show that I'd been stealing. So anyway, he starts having a go at me saying, "No, you stole this, you stole that." And I was like, obviously, no, I haven't. So I started getting angry at him. Obviously, he pulls me back into the shop. And obviously, my friends are trying to defend me, saying, "Oh, yeah, he hasn't stolen anything. Like, I don't know why you're saying that to him." Obviously, I knew the reason, but I didn't really want to say it because then that's when stuff kicks off. And I actually felt quite uncomfortable and embarrassed. So anyway, we had this dispute for like another 2 minutes. And he says, right, I'm going to call a manager. We're going to look at the cameras and then we're going to see what's happening. So anyway, now they've looked at the cameras. I don't know how, but the guy who was actually stealing it, they didn't catch him. And then the manager comes out. Yeah, in it. The manager comes out and says, on the cameras, I haven't seen myself stealing. And then the cashier, after what, about 15 minutes of arguing, he decides to come out and say, oh yeah, that guy wasn't stealing. I don't know why you're singling him out.
Yeah.
And then he just says, oh, okay, I'm sorry about that. You can go now. And I'm thinking, is your brain fried?
Yeah, that.
I'm a normal customer. I'm not known to the area as someone who steals.
Yeah.
And you see me, huh?
What shop was this?
Say that again.
What shop was this?
99p store.
Trying to think where that was.
On the high street. So it was where it was opposite KFC.
One that's still open
No,
now.
No, it's opposite KFC.
Oh yeah. But the new one's like basically next to KFC.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's mad. I've never really had it in a shop, to be honest. I don't think being accused of stealing. But like, in terms of like nightclubs and that, you don't ever or like any kind of thing like that.
No.
Nightclubs, bars, restaurants,
Oh.
anything like that.
To be fair, even if I have, I'll feel like I just don't realise in it. So it could have happened, but obviously with alcohol in your system, I'm probably not paying attention to certain things like that. So.
Or not being allowed in somewhere, anything like that.
I wouldn't say that, but you just notice things in it. You just notice, they're checking your ID more than twice, or they're a bit more rougher than you when they're doing the searches. Just stuff that's a bit unnecessary, and you're thinking, why are you doing this to me? Yeah.
I feel like we've got so used to it. Like, even if that's happened to me, but obviously, like, I just don't see it. I'm just like, cool, I already know why you're doing it. Like, I feel like when I go to certain places, I just expect them to do too much to me in it. So, like, obviously, the sad fact is, I'm just a bit like, probably happens, but I just let it go in it. Like, I don't think about it later on in it. So, I haven't got like one I can call from memory in it. But obviously, you do, Henry, because you're obviously you do because you keep saying it. So. Obviously, you have a problem in it because you keep saying it, innit? So, what was your experience? Yeah, you've got like a minute left on the Zoom, so.
Obviously, I've been not allowed in clubs. Like, various ones in it multiple times. I'm used to it. They just say, now you're not coming in, or now you're not the right age, mate. I saw them let my boy in 2 minutes before.
They meet the black quota already, innit? When they've hit there's too many black people in the club, they can't be letting everyone in. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what they're on. Like, I've experienced this shit before. Yeah.
If we're talking about nightclubs, especially, obviously we all know what happened to Cameo and Bournemouth when you guys were in first year and I was in second year. About that bouncer racially abusing that person. Yeah.
What?
I remember this. I can't lie.
Did you not hear? Okay, so basically, it was in my second year.
Yeah.
It was either in my second year, either 2016 or 2017. This bouncer got done for racially abusing someone outside the club. I can't remember the details of it, but it was obviously a big thing. A lot of people were posting about it. The facts were telling. It was clear that there was racial abuse. There was intent to make the person, to belittle the person, etc., to the color of their skin. And there was a big thing about it. I think this is the problem when thing goes out in the media, because for maybe the Afro-Caribbean community in Bournemouth, we all still remember that day because we're just thinking, this is mad, same stuff, different day. But no one else will remember it unless they search it up on Google.